Welcome to the Men Unplugged show. Get ready to plug in and recharge your life, family, and career while igniting your faith in Christ. Now, here's your host and champion of helping men live with passion and purpose, Jeff Jerina.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Jeff Jerina here, and welcome to episode 17 of Men Unplugged, where I interview inspiring Christian leaders every single day of the week to help you plug in and recharge your life. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial right now at audibletrial.com/Men Unplugged. Now let's meet today's featured guest. He was a former professional baseball player with an impressive pitching career of 42 wins and 18 losses. Since retiring, he now works as a professional baseball scout for the Boston Red Sox and runs a baseball training organization in the North Dallas area. Joining me now, founder and president of ProSource Athletics, Brandon Agamenonne. Brandon, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks so much. Very happy to be here.
Are you ready to help men plug in and recharge?
Absolutely.
All right. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. I mean, this is an incredible opportunity to talk about the Lord, talk about what He's done in our lives, and just ready to get after it.
Before we get going into the topic today, embracing the call in your life, let's chat a few minutes about your baseball career.
Sure.
So 42 wins and 18 losses. I'm just going to tell you, to me, that's very impressive. Is that or is that not?
Well,
I know you're being humble.
In all humility, yes, that is a pretty impressive pitching record. So
what got you into baseball? What is it that you like about it so much?
Yeah, actually, so my first love was football. Spent 7 years in Nebraska. So if you don't like football, they actually kick you out of the state. And so I was a quarterback growing up, and my family moved to Maryland when I was 9, and just playing football. And then I had a pretty severe neck injury, and had, you hear about all the concussion protocols and different things like that today. Well, I had the same thing happen with me, except this was, almost 30 years ago. So, but when I went to the doctor, he basically said, look, if you take another hit like that, like you're risking paralysis. And so I said, okay, so maybe there's something else that I could do to show off my arm strength a little bit. And I got into baseball, and candidly was a terrible hitter. I mean, terrible. But I was about 13, 14 years old, and could really throw the ball. I could run, and but just need a lot of practice and refinement. So just kind of fell in love with it. Fell in love with the mental side of the game a lot. Just it's a beautiful game. It drives me nuts when people say things, oh, baseball's so boring, and I always say baseball's only boring if you don't know what's going on. And so to me, it just became just this chess match. Involved with athleticism and all the moving parts and the teamwork, and just amazing game. So that's what got me into it.
So as a pitcher, you kind of have the upper hand here, right? No pun intended. And the hitter has to determine what pitch you're throwing, what speed it's coming at, what location. When did you realize that you could make it as a pro pitcher?
So it was probably when I was about 17 years old. I was played for my high school coach, and we had won a national championship, and I was a starting pitcher in that game. And
congratulations!
Thank you. But he was a really good mentor to me, along with my dad, and he just said, "Hey, colleges started calling, and every day I'd walk into school, there'd be another college letter, and that kind of woke me up a little bit to say, hey, I might be able to do something with this." And so for me, it was probably as a junior in high school, I thought if given the chance, and I continued to fill out physically and work on my game, then I'd probably have a chance to go play pro.
So you've made it all the way to the upper echelon of the minor leagues and then actually pitched in Major League Baseball spring training. So describe to the listeners here, to the guys listening, your first debut in MLB spring training. And you know what? What was it like to strike out your first pro hitter?
Yeah, so this is going to sound strange, but I got into pro ball, and I was 22 years old, and had moved quickly through the minor leagues and got invited up to pitch in Major League spring training. And, the first guy I face, I get out, and next guy, strike out. And, I just thought, man, this is amazing. One, because in the dugout at the time, this was when I was with the Expos, was Moises Alou, and
that's a good player right there.
Yeah, Vladimir Guerrero, and these guys that are now Hall of Famers or potential Hall of Famers. And we were playing against the Mets, and so it was only one inning that I pitched up there in that game, but it was just an amazing feeling to just think about all the time and work ethic and all the details and all the late nights and early mornings of training just for that one inning of opportunity. And then unfortunately, got injured, and it went south from there. But to make it that far and to do that, for 7 or 8 years was a really great time to just enjoy, what I had done since I was a teenager, and just awesome.
So is that a long road to take? I mean, to go through this whole minor league system? It seems to me that it'd be a lot of perseverance and determination that one would have to get to that level and then really surpass it.
Well, it is. It's much harder than most people think, because what most people in the general public hear about are the first or second round draft picks who just kind of breeze through, who have been given a lot of money, big time investments by the teams. But in what I do now with the Red Sox, that's part of my job, is to determine, do I think that a player is ready to make that jump? And in most cases, they're not. They're just not. They're enamored with professional baseball. They're enamored with coming home in the off season, and they get introduced at a party or wherever as this is so-and-so, the professional baseball player for, the Red Sox. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to hard work. And you might have, in the minor leagues especially, you might have had the worst outing of your career, and then you have a 12-hour bus ride to the middle of nowhere in, South Carolina, and then you've got to get up and do it again, or you might be in a 0 for 20 slump as a hitter, which you've never experienced in your life. And you've got, different cultures. I mean, obviously in baseball, you've got a lot of Latin American influence, foreign influence and stuff like that. And so now you're in this place that you're just not used to being in, and nobody's telling you how great you are. You're actually struggling mightily, and now you got to figure it out. Am I mentally tough enough to cut it? And most people aren't, because there's a very high attrition rate in professional baseball. And a lot of it has to do with either off the field things, drugs, alcohol, women. And in particular on the women's side, a lot of guys who have girlfriends or wives back home, and you're gone for 5 months of the year, 6 months of the year, and you only get to see them once a month, it just becomes too difficult. And the guys that aren't mentally tough enough end up packing it up, going home, and just saying, this isn't for me. So it's a very difficult road.
Man, that sounds like it. Okay, my last question for you in terms of baseball is, what was your favorite pitch?
Oh, fastball. I mean, for sure.
Hey, I like that. Throw the heater, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was never considered a flamethrower, but it was one of those things where as you get going, my best fastball might have been 90, 92, 93, something like that. But today, that's nothing. I mean, most guys today are throwing 95, 96, 97. Training techniques have improved. All sort of nutrition has improved. I mean, all sorts of things. Guys are bigger, faster, stronger. But at the end of the day, standing up there on the mound and saying, I know that this is a fastball hitting count, and I'm going to still throw the fastball, and you blow it by the guy, there's no better feeling. It's awesome. That's
got to feel pretty good. Now, are you trying to get that fastball up high or just wherever?
You're basically looking at the hitter's swing. You might look at where he stands in the box. You might look at his hand positioning, and then you're going to determine based on either his last swing against you, or something you saw in the batter's box, or something you saw in batting practice or in the on-deck circle, to try and execute that pitch where you think it's going to best get him out. So, for instance, a guy with low hands that has a big leg kick, you probably can beat him up in the zone. a guy with high hands, trying to go down to the ball. Maybe he can't get down to it fast enough. So it's going to be pitch by pitch and hitter by hitter. But, it's always fun to throw a fastball by a guy, above his waist and just, see him frustrated, hanging his head, go back to the dugout.
Hey, you know what? I asked you another question there. I told you I wouldn't, but check this out. For anybody that's playing ball, for guys that are listening that maybe you're just getting out of high school or in college and wanting to make a pro career, or maybe you're a dad that has a son right now playing baseball, you just got a free tip from a former professional pitcher. So they're probably saying thank you for that right there. That was probably worth at least $500.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break to hear a word from our partners. When we come back, we'll continue our chat with former ball player Brandon Agamenonne. How would you like to get that extra edge to really supercharge your life? But you know what? You don't have the time to read the material to do that. Well, I've got a special offer for you. Go to audibletrial.com/Men Unplugged to download any one of Audible's 180,000 plus audiobooks for free, along with a free 30-day trial membership. Okay, so let's jump into the topic, embracing the call on a man's life. Now, I'm going to say this. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the Men Unplugged Tribe, guys, on the website and get a free copy of my book, 10 Steps to Power and Purpose, which I'll tell you what we're talking about today is that practical guide to helping you find and live your true calling. So, Brandon, what are some words of wisdom that you can offer the Men Unplugged community right now about this topic?
Sure. So, not to be too harsh, but I think the best advice I can give men today is to stop being selfish. If you look at the Bible, the calling that Jesus had was obviously to come and die on the cross for our sins and to save humanity from themselves. However, in doing that, when he walked on the earth, he was a servant leader, and I think that that's our calling today. And I see, unfortunately, a lot of men who go out there and who would rather spend time on what they want to spend time on instead of spending time on their ministry, which is at home, their wives and their children, and creating a legacy that they don't realize is being created. I mean, you're creating a legacy no matter what you do, but sometimes that legacy might not be good. Just,
right.
You might be creating a legacy at work. You might be creating a legacy on the golf course. You might be creating a legacy in other ways that is not what God called you to. And so I think it all stems from sin and selfishness. And I've been there myself. But when I realized that my first and most important ministry was at home with my wife and children, things changed dramatically, and the Lord has blessed that dramatically.
That's a great point there, Brandon. Now, did you have an aha moment here in your life when you realized that what you were doing wasn't your calling? You needed to actually be doing something different than what you were just talking about.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was like an epiphany moment. I would say it was a gradual slide down a path of, man, this isn't what I wanted my marriage to look like. This isn't what I was hoping who I would be as a father. And I want to say this appropriately. I don't see anything wrong with watching a football game or watching a baseball game or whatever. I only see that it's a problem when your priorities are out of whack, and that becomes the utmost instead of the time with your family, instead of the time with the Lord. And so what I started to do was turn off the TV and go engage my wife, get off the computer and go color a picture with my daughter, or take my boys outside and teach them how to throw a football or shoot a basketball, or just simply talk to them about what's going on in their lives at their different age groups. And it's not always easy, because then you hear the boys talking the next day, and they're all like, "Oh, did you see that play? Did you see this? Did you see that?" And you're like, "Man, I missed that."
Yeah.
But guess what I didn't miss is the smile on my daughter's face, or the smile on my son's face, or that deep conversation that might have had an impact 20 years from now in my son's life, or my wife and I engaging in a different way and growing deeper in our marriage. So, I'm not missing out on those things anymore.
I like that. That reminds me, when I grew up, and I don't know, maybe you can relate with me on this, but we didn't have social media.
Yep.
And we're going to do a podcast on social media and just really what the benefits are and the disadvantages, those sort of things. But I remember just going outside, throwing the football with my dad, going to play tennis, going to play basketball, and still to this day at 46 years old, those are the most memorable moments to me in my life.
No doubt.
And I try to do the same thing for my kids. When you mentioned about watching football, years ago, Brandon, I kind of made an idol out of watching football games. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, a Texas Longhorn fan. I just finally had to realize, man, I was making an idol out of that and spending more time doing that than with my wife. And I said, you know what? I just have to stop. So for me, I just stopped cold turkey. And, I have more peace now because I'm not getting caught up into it.
Right.
And then, now I'm able to do more stuff, like you said, with your family. How about right now, somebody listening, and there's a guy that's struggling to find his place. What would you say to this man right now on how to know whose he is as opposed to what he does?
Yeah, I would say you always have to start with the Bible. You always have to start with the Word of God. I have a saying I tell a lot of people. I say, time always reveals truth. So if you're seeking and you feel like you're going down a bad path or you're struggling, like, go to the Word. What does the Word tell you? What does the Word engage you in? And ask the Lord to reveal it to you. What is my calling in this? What is my calling with my wife? How should I engage her differently? I'm struggling with, being a parent. I feel like every decision I make is wrong. I say this advice and my kid does the exact opposite. And I go, welcome to life. We're in a fallen, broken world, But
Right.
If you use the Word, you really can't go wrong. And I would also say humility is a great place to start. Humbling yourself and just going to your wife and going to your kids and saying, hey, how can I engage you better? What are the things you like to do? Let me, and I think there's something that men struggle with, and that which is pride. And we have a ton of it, and we're told how great we are, especially as former athletes, all the time. And then we get in our homes and we start to struggle, and so we internalize because we don't want to admit that we struggle. And so I think just being open enough and wise enough to humble yourself goes a long way, especially with the Lord and what He intends to do with your life.
That's big. Well, that wraps up the first portion of my interview with Brandon Agamenonne. Make sure you listen to episode 18 as I wrap up the conversation with Brandon. You know what? You definitely want to check that out because we're going to be hitting up the Supercharge round as I ask Brandon some tough questions to really help you to unplug or disconnect from those things that weigh you down so that you can recharge one or more areas of your life. If you haven't done so already, subscribe, rate, and review the show on the iTunes podcast page. With that said, stay plugged in and recharged. God bless.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. There's plenty more to see at menunplugged.net, including key resources and ways to engage with Jeff in his training and speaking forums. While there, don't forget to subscribe and receive a free gift. We look forward to you joining us next time here on the Men Unplugged Show.